power, history, and influence inside the world's smallest state. In the center of Rome, surrounded by ancient streets, modern traffic, and layers of history stretching back thousands of years, there is a place that feels separate from everything around it. It is enclosed by walls, guarded, symbolic, and deeply influential. This place is Vatican City. To most people, it appears as a religious destination, a tourist site, a cultural landmark filled with art and architecture. But beneath that surface, it is also something else. It is a sovereign state, a global institution, a political and diplomatic actor, and one of the oldest continuously operating centers of authority in human history. To understand it is to understand how belief, governance, and influence can exist inside a single system, and how that system has endured for centuries. The origins of a global institution, the origins of Vatican City, are tied to the earliest development of Christianity itself. In the 1st century, Christianity emerged within the Roman Empire. At the time, it was not an established religion. It was a small movement, often misunderstood, often persecuted, and spread quietly through communities across the empire. Followers gathered in private spaces. Religious practice was not publicly protected, and in many cases, it was dangerous to openly identify as Christian. But despite this, the movement continued to grow. Over time, it spread across cities, trade routes, and regions of the Roman world. Then came a turning point in history. In the 4th century, the Roman Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan. This granted religious tolerance throughout the empire. Christianity was no longer illegal. And from that moment, its influence began to expand rapidly. The importance of Saint Peter, a central figure in early Christian tradition, is Saint Peter. According to religious history, Peter was one of the apostles of Jesus. He is often considered the first bishop of Rome, and later, the foundation of what became the papacy. Tradition holds that Peter was buried in Rome, on a site that would eventually become one of the most important locations in Christianity. Centuries later, our basilica was constructed over this site. That structure evolved into what is now St. Peter's Basilica, and surrounding it, the institutional center of the Catholic Church began to form. This geographic and symbolic connection is one of the reasons Vatican City holds such importance today. It is not just a political location. It is a place built on layered historical meaning. From religious authority to political power, as Christianity grew in influence, so did the authority of its leadership. By the medieval period, the papacy was no longer only a spiritual role. It also carried political influence across large parts of Europe. The Pope was not just a religious figure. He was also a ruler of territories. These territories were known as the Papal States. At their height, the Papal States controlled large regions of central Italy. This made the papacy both a spiritual authority and a political power. It governed land, collected taxes, negotiated with kings, and influenced European politics. This dual role made the institution unique in global history. Few organizations have held both religious and political authority simultaneously for such a long period of time. The loss of the Papal States in the 19th century, Europe underwent major political transformation. Nationalism spread across the continent. Empires were reorganized, and modern nation-states began to form. Italy, previously divided into multiple regions and kingdoms, began the process of unification. As the Italian state expanded, it absorbed territories once controlled by the Church. By 1870, the Papal States were no longer independent. The Pope lost territorial authority over most of central Italy. This created a major political conflict. For decades, the papacy and the Italian state remained in disagreement. The Pope considered himself confined within the Vatican area, a situation often described historically as being a prisoner in the Vatican. This tension remained unresolved for nearly 60 years. The Lateran Treaty and the birth of a city-state in 1929, a major agreement, changed everything. The Lateran Treaty was signed between the Holy See and the Kingdom of Italy. This agreement formally established Vatican City as an independent sovereign state. It granted full recognition under international law. It defined the Pope as the absolute monarch of the city-state. And it resolved decades of political tension between Italy and the Church. From that moment onward, the Vatican became the smallest independent country in the world. But despite its size, its influence remained global. Because its authority was not based on geography. It was based on religion, diplomacy, and tradition. How the Vatican is governed. The structure of Vatican City is unlike any modern nation-state. At its center is the Pope, who serves as both spiritual leader of the Catholic Church and head of state. This dual role is unique in global governance. Below the Pope is the administrative system known as the Roman Curia. This system manages the internal operations of the Church worldwide. It oversees doctrine, appointments, diplomacy, communication, and global coordination across Catholic institutions. The Vatican also maintains diplomatic relationships with countries around the world through representatives known as nuncios. These officials act similarly to ambassadors and allow the Vatican to participate in international diplomacy. Despite its small size, the Vatican maintains formal relations with over 180 countries. This makes it one of the most globally connected institutions in the world. The Vatican as a diplomatic actor. One of the most overlooked aspects of Vatican City is its role in global diplomacy. Unlike most states, it does not rely on military power or economic scale. Instead, its influence is rooted in moral authority and historical continuity. The Vatican often participates in international discussions related to peace, conflict resolution, and humanitarian issues. Popes regularly engage with world leaders, and the institution frequently acts as a neutral voice in global negotiations. This form of influence is often referred to as soft power. It is based on persuasion rather than force, and it has allowed the Vatican to remain relevant in global affairs for centuries. Art, culture, and human heritage. Beyond politics and religion, Vatican City is also one of the most important cultural sites in the world. Its museums contain thousands of works of art, spanning centuries of human creativity. The Sistine Chapel is one of the most iconic artistic spaces in human history. Its ceiling, painted by Michelangelo, is considered a masterpiece of Renaissance art. St. Peter's Basilica is one of the largest and most architecturally significant churches ever built. Inside the Vatican museums, visitors encounter sculptures, paintings, manuscripts, and religious artifacts collected over hundreds of years. These works are not just religious objects. They are historical records of human civilization. The Vatican preserves them as part of its cultural mission. The Vatican economy, despite its small physical size, the Vatican operates a complex financial system. Its economy is supported through several sources: donations from Catholics worldwide, revenue from tourism, museum admissions, and internal financial management systems. One of the most well-known financial institutions associated with the Vatican is the Institute for the Works of Religion, often referred to as the Vatican Bank. Its purpose is to manage financial assets related to church activities. Over time, the Vatican has introduced reforms aimed at improving transparency and accountability. These reforms reflect a broader effort to modernize internal systems while maintaining tradition. Daily life inside the Vatican. Life inside Vatican City is highly structured. The population is extremely small. Fewer than 1,000 people reside within its walls full-time. Residents include clergy, administrative staff, and members of the Swiss Guard. The Swiss Guard is responsible for ceremonial duties and security. They are one of the oldest military units in continuous operation. Daily life includes religious services, administrative work, and constant interaction with visitors and pilgrims. Despite its global influence, the Vatican itself functions as a compact, tightly organized environment. Modern challenges and change. In the modern world, the Vatican faces a series of ongoing challenges. Religious participation is declining in some regions. Global society is becoming more secular. There are ongoing calls for institutional reform and increasing expectations for transparency in financial and administrative systems. Recent leadership has focused on addressing these challenges through modernization efforts, balancing tradition with change, preserving identity while adapting to a globalized world. This tension is central to the Vatican's current evolution. Why the Vatican still matters today. Despite its size, Vatican City continues to play a significant role in global affairs. It influences moral discussions. It participates in diplomacy. It preserves cultural heritage. And it remains a central institution for over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. Its power does not come from land or military strength. It comes from history, belief, and continuity. Few institutions in the world have maintained relevance across so many centuries. And fewer still have adapted to modern times while retaining their original identity. Conclusion: the Vatican is often misunderstood as simply a religious landmark. But in reality, it is far more complex. It is a state, a governing institution, a cultural archive, a diplomatic entity, and a symbol of continuity across thousands of years. Its influence extends far beyond its physical borders, and its role in global history is deeply intertwined with the development of Western civilization itself. As the world continues to change, the Vatican remains one of the few institutions that connects ancient history to the modern era. And that connection is what makes it one of the most unique places in the world.